Hi there, Adapters. We are here at the Urban Living Festival in London at Canary Wharf. I'm so delighted to be here with Jill. Jill, my goodness, you've got a background. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah.
What really is the outcome of what you do as well? Because it's quite impactful in the real estate markets that you dabble in.
Okay. Well, I'm a quantity surveyor. That's my background. So and actually that means that I'm a cost consultant and dabble with a bit of procurement and cost management ultimately. And I suppose the impact of what I do and what our business does is supporting clients and our peer colleagues in the design team come up with best solutions and best fits, optimising the best from a scenario so that projects can go forward in a really positive way that responds to the 3 Ps that we've been talking about: the people, the planet, and the profitability.
And considering there are 3 big Ps, at what stage does your firm get involved with at the investor level? Is it pre-acquisition? Is it where do you fit in the ecosystem?
The whole way through, the whole life. We actually do genuinely get involved across the whole life cycle of a project. You might say that starts at pre-acquisition. So very often we are supporting clients who are looking at assets or sites and helping them figure out what the program of work is going to be. But very often those conversations are sort of brought about because we're already working on a project with them and we've got existing relationships. So yeah, we can dip in and out at any point actually, and it's about long, well-established, sustainable relationships. That's really where our engagement comes from.
So it sounds like you've got a really good relationship with IHG. And I recently read one of your reports where it spoke to how to transform and think and even start measuring ESG over a long period of time for investors. Can you fill us in on that relationship with Schneider and others like that, and how that came about with the RUP and or others?
Yeah, so it probably was initiated about 2.5 years ago, and it was focused on the sustainability aspect, in that we were actually in the midst of COVID as we were writing it, and we wanted to, the group wanted to do something collaborative and that was not so much innovative, but that would push us forward. I think we all were experiencing a lot of talk and not much action, and that was born out of some of the interventions that you can do with existing. So the subject of we did a white paper, and the white paper was called the transformation of existing hotels to net zero carbon. So the paper came about. It was born out of Arup, IHG and Schneider Electric. Schneider Electric have great technology in the operational space. So a lot of the servicing equipment, mechanical, electrical and plumbing systems have got technologies that will read data and the controls and those sorts of things. And so they have access to real live operational data. And then IHG, through their own platform, also have massive amount of data across their whole portfolio of operated assets. So pulling on those 2 data sets, Arup as well as Gleeds were asked and invited to kind of go forward with the white paper. And it was really about creating something that could be a point of reference to support owners of properties as well as operators and developers with how you could go about actually improving assets. And it was about knowing that there is ownership of assets, but with what's going on at the moment with the sustainability, if we don't put improvements in place, then assets will become stranded.
Right. So stranded meaning that they're effectively unsaleable at some point.
Yeah. Or the rental income that can be yielded from them is reduced, and it could potentially decline over years as other properties are improved. So it's about trying to balance up that disconnect, really.
So then, what I thought was very impactful, and we talk about adaptation and innovation here, and but first, before you adapt, you have to understand, or you innovate and there's a gap in the market. But what I found interesting about the white paper was you were showing different levels of return depending on the investment. So like specific solar protection or solar films on buildings, down to the typical stuff that everybody thinks about, which is the thermostats, etc. But the return on investment on that, how did you go about measuring that?
Well, interestingly, there were some interventions. The first interventions that, like the low-hanging fruit, were things like the shower heads. So using aerated water coming out the shower heads, that was one of the most simple measures that could be taken. And the way that rooms are booked, so booking rooms as blocks rather than scattered around the building, those were the two things that actually operationally didn't cost anything and didn't cause any need for any kind of intervention physically.
Yeah. So as we begin to wrap up our conversation, perfect is the enemy of good. Do something to get moving. When you think of it, tips and takes for building owners, knowing that this world that we're in about community, ESG, the mix of how we think about what a community is, how you think about building a building that's, you can say, we're making a start. What are the tips you have for, let's say, asset managers who can influence owners to say, try this?
I think be curious. I mean, it sounds like such a cliche, but I think genuinely being curious, because the rate and pace of change at the moment it feels like it's unprecedented. It probably isn't, but we're having to short circuit what we're doing in order to get that innovation kick-started and embedded. We're a long way off where we need to get to. There was a really interesting statistic, and I think it's 80% of the buildings that will exist in 2050, they exist now already. So we've got to deal with that 80%, let alone the new stock that's coming forward. So let's prioritise our attentions to where we can make the most impact. And like I said, it's going to be different in all circumstances, but yeah, like genuinely being curious and trying to understand your starting point, your baseline, and then prioritising simple measures first. Makes a lot of sense.
That's just practical sense. I remember when I started in tech, I wish I'd known this years ago, which was starting with, I don't know. And it's amazing the gates that open. The second thing I think I'm hearing is, this is so complex, you can't do this on your own. Yes, it means spending money, but you need to get the people that know and build a knowledge community, just like you're building a local community, to help you get there faster. 80% of buildings are already straining to comply with the 2050 guidelines. So it's a now thing. So this has been super helpful. Thank you so much for making the time, Jill. We are the Adapters, and thank you for watching.